looking at your feedback from last lesson, I think it's important to go over the differences between what sources are, which generally you're asked to think about how useful they are, so that's utility, and the interpretations again, so people's opinions, historians' opinions. So what kinds of things make a source? So you can see I've got some images here on the screen. So we've got anything really that's left over from the past that's going to tell us something about the past. So it can be documents, and for us in England we have a central place called the National Archives in Kew, which keep our government records, censuses, things like that. Their job is to house the records, to look after them, to select and think what's important about it, and anybody can go in there and access these. So you've got government records, you've got propaganda posters, tax records, employment records, censuses, so telling us how many people lived where at what time in the past. We've obviously got books, Bibles, for example, have front covers from the different kings in the times of like Henry VIII, the Tudors, the Stuarts, etc. That gives us the kings' political ideas through their religious ideas as well. Train tickets, shipping tickets, military records, newspapers. Now lots of different places keep their records, and you can obviously apply to them to see these. And newspaper archives and things you can generally access online. Objects are really important, things like clothes, food records, technology, so what kinds of things are available in the past. And obviously for us, archaeology is quite important as well. So where the archaeologists are able to dig up and work out what actually was physically where and when. So sources can be really, really useful. They can be really valuable because they give us evidence from the past so that we can gain information and we can draw conclusions. We can make the inferences, the educated guesses based upon the evidence that we have in front of us. So this shows sometimes the views people were putting forward at the time, like government records or propaganda posters that they wanted people to believe, as well as in newspapers, things like that, people's reactions as well. However, we've also got to remember how limited these are, because obviously it depends on what's actually being kept. Generally, records and letters and things only tend to get kept from really important people whose families have put them into archives, like Winston Churchill, for example. The average person, it's quite difficult to find somebody's diary, and also their diary might not be that useful. It might be quite personal to them. You can't access all government records either. Things that are really controversial are locked up, and things that we can't actually get to. So generally, history tends to be quite limited by the sources that are available to us, and in some cases where there have been fires or really ancient things, the materials that they wrote on have rotted away, we struggle to find physical evidence that can help us draw conclusions about the past. So a reminder then about how interpretations are created. So remember, interpretations are opinions about the past. Now, they're not just random opinions that have just been made up without any evidence to back it up using any sources. So generally, historians will start with looking at excuse me, either a cause, an event, or a person, and then they will think about the actual what happened side of it. Now, to do that, they're going to need to use the sources, aren't they? So they're going to need to think about the sources of information that they've got available to them and select the ones that are most useful. And they're going to need to think about what people actually wanted us to think when they left those sources of information behind. So they need to take that into consideration when making their opinion. Now, particularly valuable about historians is they can then think about the consequences of these events, actions, or the people to judge how important they are. And to do that, hindsight is obviously a really valuable thing because we can look back and see how it's led on to other events to happen, or how other people have taken those as examples and then use them to kind of influence the way that they've acted in the past as well. All of those things all play into making something a decision on how important you think something is. So I'm going to leave a little reminder up on the screen for you so that you can think about all the different layers of things that historians have to consider when they're forming their interpretation. So the factual information, the propaganda, consequences, other people's opinions, so using other historians' interpretations, the impact of their own personal bias, and what records are available. And what I'd like you to do is make a list of why these might make them valuable and why they also might limit interpretations that we will be able to see.